In an interview and an essay with The Economist, the Ukrainian commander-in-chief, General Valery Zaluzhny, has more or less admitted that the Ukrainian counteroffensive has failed. In this video, I'm going to summarize it as shortly as possible. The three texts that I'm referring to, you can find them in the description. Hello and welcome. After 5 months of counteroffensive, the Ukrainian armed forces have at their most advanced by just 17 kilometers. This is far away from their initial goals of freeing Melitopol, reaching the Azov Sea, and maybe even liberating the Crimean Peninsula. Zaluzhny is admitting that it is that the Ukrainian forces have neither achieved to force Russia to give in through losses, nor to reach their aimed geographical goals. Every other nation, he says, would have collapsed after suffering at least 150,000 dead people, but Russia or Putin are thinking in the dimensions of both world wars, where tens of millions of casualties have been suffered. A victory through bleeding Russia white has such not succeeded, and territorial, in regards to territory, Ukraine hasn't succeeded either. Initially, Ukraine was supposed to advance 30 kilometers per day. That's according to the NATO planning and according to the Ukrainian armed forces' own calculations. He himself mentions that within those 5 months, that would have sufficed to reach the Crimean Peninsula, liberate it, return to the initial front lines, and do it all over again, including a return. But in reality, 17 kilometers were the most they achieved because the Ukrainian armed forces were stuck in minefields of up to 20 kilometers in depth, and their material was destroyed by the Russian artillery. Initially, he was looking for the reasons for failure among his commanders and replaced a couple of them. Then he was looking at the soldiers, that maybe their motivation isn't up to the task, so he rotated some troops, but when even this failed, he had his staff look for a book that he remembered, which he read being a military student, and the name of the book was Breaching Fortified Defense Lines by Major General Smirnov from the year 1941. When he read the book, Zaluzhny said it became clear to him that Ukraine and Russia are now facing each other at solidified, at static front lines, where even running against them for weeks is barely achieving any change. Full transparency along the front line due to the proliferance of drones is leading to the fact that every troop concentration is immediately identified, and precision weapons are destroying them. To overcome that, innovation is necessary to a degree like gunpowder was in warfare historically. But he says it's much more likely that a combination of innovations will be needed in regards to drones, electronic warfare, counter battery fire against artillery, in mine clearing, as well as in robotics. Zaluzhny is, and that's interesting, he's not really pointing fingers at the West and is not not blaming it. He says Ukraine is thankful for everything they are getting, even though the article mentions that it's more or less aimed at avoiding that Ukraine is getting defeated, then allowing Ukraine to win itself out of fears for an escalation. The West is not duty-bound in any ways, though, to support Ukraine, and he acknowledges this. Still, though, this allowed Russia to build fortifications and strengthen them in the meantime. Every weapon that arrived more or less arrived a year too late to achieve their maximum effect, and even the F-16s, when they finally come next year, won't be a game changer, as Russia has had the time to adjust its air defense systems, to learn from the war, and to introduce a new modified experimental S-400 version that can shoot down Ukrainian planes further inland than the city of Dnipro. It's important to understand, he says, that this war will not be won with the weapons of the past generation and overcome methods. But at the same time, new methods, new developments are not visible. They aren't here yet. Russia has the advantage in a long war. That's why Ukraine needs to stay in the offensive, needs to keep attacking, even if it only advances by a couple of meters per day. For Zaluzhny, the biggest danger, the biggest threat is that it all turns into trench warfare, in which Russia will simply hope that Ukraine's cohesion collapses and the West stops supporting it, while Russia itself has the time to reinvigorate its armed forces and use its huge military potential due to its arms industry and its mobilization potential to overcome Ukraine in the long run. That was more or less a summary as short as possible. There are 3 different texts. They're all linked in the description in case you're interested in that. And even though the topic might not be as pleasant, if you still enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps with the algorithm. And leave a comment what do you think, how it'll continue now, what Ukraine can do. If you're new here, I would like to invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss future videos. That's it from me for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back.